Hey, welcome back. Last time we left off with creating a Docker container so that we could scale up our models at any time and anywhere and have it consistently run in the same settings because the environments would be the same. Now, let's say, we have a great voice agent. We have a voice agent that's got a great backend, it's got a great system prompt, everything's ready to go, but you want it to be on a phone call. Why? Because the users may use it more over a phone call rather than on a Zoom call or any other sort of WebRTC call. So what's our next step? Well, we could work on and implementing it via Twilio, which is what I actually did when I won my hackathon that I recently participated in. So we're going to still use the same sort of underlying architecture, but we're going to build off of it. Now, in the hackathon I did, I actually utilized a few other tools like Langflow, which really helped with creating the agent architecture. But for this, because we don't want a complicated process, we're just going to go over Twilio and how to integrate Pipecast with Twilio so that you can easily get your voice agent on a phone call, especially for things like I did with my Civic bot, where the basic issue was getting a user to actually figure out how to navigate the governmental systems. And these governmental systems are quite complex, and a lot of the users themselves don't really have that ease of access to internet all the time. So it'd be quite difficult to be able to access a video call. So what would be much easier would just be a phone call that they could call in and be like, hey, I need my EBT form filled out. How do I do it, etc. Right now we're going to be building a very basic agent, and we're just going to go through and figure out how to actually code it out. So right now, actually, what we're going to be focusing on is coding the voice agent. So we're going to start over more or less from scratch, but we're going to have a little bit of knowledge from before, so I'm not going to necessarily explain about how this goes. I might do a little bit of a speed through for building out the voice agent and getting the system prompt and everything. But if you ever have any questions, you can refer to my previous videos, which I will link to somewhere. Who knows? And yeah, maybe below the like button. All right, so first we're going to start with making a requirements file. So this is just going to be like all the other requirements that we've done before. We're going to have Pipecast with all its extensions. We're going to need to be able to get our environment variables, do HTTP calls, create a fast API endpoint, and also be able to create our server. Now these are going to not be used the same way it was used earlier, 100%. Instead, we're going to have a few changes where we're going to actually be letting Twilio call our endpoints. Like I showed you in the previous one, you can use ngrok or the port forwarding created in VS Code. We're going to be using port forwarding created in VS Code for this one. And then let's focus on, let's do creating your agent. We're going to code this out from scratch. So for this one, let's call it your voice bot. And we'll have a lot of import statements, so I'm just going to speed through these. Now we've gotten all the import statements. Like I mentioned earlier, we've written them all out. And there's a few changes. We have the wave, which is a file type for all of these audio files, and how we'll sort of handle it. Then we have the Twilio frame serializer. So this is something that is helping us connect with Twilio from Pipecast side. We also have the audio buffer processor to add in buffers so that there's no sort of weirdness on the phone call, and just some fast API stuff so that we can connect to Twilio properly. So now we're just going to be building out a few special functions. The first function, or probably just one special function. First special function, and maybe the only one, is going to be the save audio. What this is basically just how we're saving the audio, so that we have access to it whenever we need it. So we're just going to be taking in a few special values, and the values themselves are important. So the server name is sort of where we're storing it. The audio is the actual audio that we're getting in. The sample rate is the rate at which the audio is spoken, so 1600 or 16,000 hertz, 8,000 hertz, whatever it might be. Number of channels of how many channels we're getting in data from. Then we're just going to essentially make sure that no, that's not what we're doing. We're checking if the audio is greater than 0, and as long as the audio is greater than 0, then we want to create our file name. And the file name in question should be, what this autocomplete showing, more or less. We want to have the server name, plus that we're recording, and we want the datetime object. So this is why we added the datetime object, so that we could easily reference it based on the date. And then we just want to basically make the time in this specific format that we want it, which you can adjust it however you like in future iterations, but for us, this is what we're going to be doing. And so what this is just doing is saying, hey, looks like I auto-completed. All right, we want it in the year, month, day, hour, minutes, seconds format, and then we want it as a WAV file. Pretty straightforward. So that's our file name. And then while we, now when we're actually sort of going through the audio data itself, we want to actually read it and store it somewhere. So what we're going to just do is just open up the file with the buffer. Oh my god, not what I meant to do, because we want to code it out together. So we have the file to open, and we'll call it WF, which then we're going to set the sample width to 2. Then we want to set the number of channels to be the number of channels that we got. Then we want to set the frame rate to the sample frame rate. And then we want to write frames of audio to the file. And how do we actually finally add it to the file? This is where we're going to actually write it to a specific file using, we want to write to the file. We're writing bytes because of audio being bytes, and then we just write it. That's it, pretty straightforward. Now we just have a few logging statements so that we know what happened. And we merged audio, save to, and then the file name. And in case it fails, we always want to do a log of that, and there's no audio data saved. Right, pretty straightforward. Now we actually want to build out our bot like we did last time. So this I might just go through a little quicker. There is 1 or 2 areas that are different, and so we're just going to call it start bot for the name for this. And this is the first place that's different. So we have the WebSocket client, which is the WebSocket, and the stream SID. So these are just ways that we can connect to the WebSocket as well as understand the specific ID of the stream that's going on. The stream meaning the call. So first we're going to create our transport with the fast API WebSocket transport. That transport is going to be very much like our daily was earlier. So we're going to have the WebSocket equal to the WebSocket client. That's going to be the one main thing that's different. So it's just that we're using that specific WebSocket for making these calls. And then we have our params just like we did it previously. we have the fast API WebSocket parameters instead of the daily parameters. And here we want to basically set them more or less the same. So we're going to have the audio out enabled to true, audio in enabled to true, the camera out enabled to false because we're not using that right now. The transcription, okay, transcription enabled equals false because, again, like I said, we like to set our own deep gram speech to text, but you can leave that as true if you want to use the built-in one. And then the VAD enabled, this is the most important one. We want to set that to true because we do want to use our VAD to make sure that we are sentencizing correct and understanding delineation and when people are speaking and not speaking. And then we want to be able to pass through the VAD audio, the audio to be passed through the VAD. And lastly, we want to actually set our VAD analyzer. So we'll create our Solero VAD analyzer with the params, and we'll set the VAD params with the stop seconds 0.2 like we did last time, the start seconds at 0.2 like we did last time, and the confidence at 0.4. Okay, and that's basically it for the VAD analyzer for most of the things, outside of one last one where we have the serializer. Like I said, we need to work with the Twilio frame serializer, and we need to know the stream SID. That's it, and we are done with the transport. So now it's more or less like the rest of what we built earlier. So now that we have the transport, let's start building out our speech to text. And again, we'll use the API key from our and language. I'm gonna stick with English US, but again, you can always change that if you have international languages or non-English languages or other countries' English languages. Like US is one example, but British English is quite different. The text-to-speech, again, just to make things easier, we're going to use the deep gram text-to-speech, and we'll set the API key to the same. And last, we'll have our Llama LLM service. Pretty straightforward. And then we'll have our messages. I just have it say hi to start with. It's probably actually not going to work if you just put in without the proper, so we're just going to leave it empty. We'll just leave it empty. And now we have our messages that we are getting from the user. So we want to aggregate those. And same with the user for here. And my apologies, we definitely don't want it like that. We want it to be messages. But this time to get the assistant's responses. And then we create our audio buffer. Like I mentioned earlier, this audio buffer is how we're going to buffer stuff on the Twilio side so that we can properly get and give information through Twilio's API. And then we're going to create our pipeline. Oh, sorry, not up here. Don't know how that happened. Pipeline. And we're going to create our pipeline, which should be more or less the same. We have our transport input, our speech to text, our users input, like the user response input aggregator. Then you have your LLM, your text to speech, your output, sending it out through Twilio. Then we have our audio buffer, and finally aggregating our responses. Basic pipeline, more or less the same stuff. Now we're going to have our task. Again, should be more or less the same, not much different here because the main difference is just, oh, that was not what I expected, but sure, we can more or less go with that. I think we'll just get rid of this and actually all of that. No, that was supposed to be like that. Like I said, we're going to more or less keep everything the same here. The main difference is actually going to be later, and I'll show you where that is. And report only. The main difference is here, the audio in sample rate and the audio out sample rate. So because of Twilio, the rates that it works with over phone calls, it's 8,000. That's what we're going to be using. And then now there is going to be one slight difference here, and it's mainly how we handle how to start the conversation. So instead of starting on participant joined, we're going to do on client connected, because this is how we know that the client has, or the call has actually connected with the person and they picked up. And so once, more or less what that was showing, once we create that, we're going to create our function for it. And all we're going to do here is wait for the record to start the recording from the audio buffer, and then we're going to get it started. Just get the call started. And we're just going to pass along the messages. Pretty straightforward. Now we also want to end the call. In the case of the call ending, sorry, did not mean to go that far up, at transport.event handler, and now we're going to do on client disconnected, correct? Because if the client ever ends the call, we want to make sure that's a thing. So I'm just going to have that type itself out. And when the client disconnects, just like this is showing actually, we do need the transport and the client. And what we're going to do is pretty straightforward. Just cancel the task. Just end the call. Last thing that we're going to want to do is anytime we get audio data is how to handle it. So like this is saying, except instead of on audio in, we just want to do on audio data. And we're going to create this sort of method. This is not 100% right. We're going to change this. What we're going to actually be using is buffer, audio, sample rate, and the number of channels. And then we're going to be using the server name equals to, and here's where we're setting the server name. For right now, I'm just going to be using the WebSocket client.client.port just to get things straightforward and easy. And then we're just going to save the audio using that. And then we just start the runner. We create the runner like we did last time. We start the runner, and like we did last time, we're just going to keep this main sort of thing where we start the bot as soon as if this is ever called, so that we can always have the Twilio call running. But now this will no longer handle WebRTC calls. We have only set this up for Twilio calls. Cool. So now that we've gotten the basic agent built, we do have to still build out our server like we did last time. The server this time will be slightly different, but more or less the same. Sorry, I lost my mouse. There it is. Not in the folder. Server.py. So we're going to have a few import statements. Let's just fill those out. And now we're going to be creating our fast API, and just like we did last time, all right, so now that we've got the import statements all ready to go, we are just going to start building out the API. Then we will now add in middleware. Not necessary, but just to get things looking a little prettier, we'll add in our cores middleware. We will, so that we can make sure that we're allowing all origins. Again, this would actually be something that you want to build out in case this is just for demo purposes or for testing. Basically, you want to be able to do this only now, but you want to be able to limit who's calling in and whatever. These are sort of things that you can do that with. So we can allow credentials, we can allow methods, and we can allow headers. These are the different things that you can sort of allow from the API call to come into you. Then we're going to do a post call, which is just going to be the basic endpoint, where now we're going to actually just start the call if that happens. So if we ever get the basic endpoint hit, we just want to start the call. And what does that do? I'm just going to do I don't think we have a logger on here, so maybe we can add log guru. And we can just do logger dot. So yeah, like I said, we can add in the loguru logger, and then we can just do a logger.info, and we can say post twiml. This twiml is just the language that Twilio uses. So then we will just say that we've hit that, and so we're going to send the HTML response with the content equals to open, and we're going to use a template. Not necessary, you could theoretically write it out here. I just think it's a little cleaner. We'll make the template right after this actually, just so you know what's in that template. Alright, so this is just how we start the call. Now when we're making the template, because I put it into the template settings, we're just going to create this template, and then inside of there we're going to create streams.xml. Alright, so now we're going to code out the streams.xml file. So it's a pretty straightforward thing. First we just got to set up our XML version, just setting it to version 1, and then the encoding to UTF-8. Then we're going to set up our response, which is the stream, and the stream, which is to connect to a stream. And inside the stream, we're going to have our URL. And so here we're going to use ws://, and then we're going to want to use the port that we're exposing. So because we're running this locally, we're just going to expose one of our ports locally. I'm going to use Microsoft's port forwarding tool from VS Code. You just open up this thing from VS Code, you can set it to public. You can use ngrok as well. Anything's fine, doesn't really particularly matter. And just make sure to remove this https://, and then at the very end, make sure to put the ws, because that's the endpoint that we're targeting. And then from here, you want to close out the stream, and you want to close out the connection, and then we want to pause to give time for the actual connection to happen properly, and finally close out the response. So we built out the streams.xml file, and now we're just going to create that server on the server side. We're going to create that endpoint that we were hitting there, the WebSocket. So we're going to do app.websocket, and like I said, we're going to be using that WS endpoint. So let's create the function, this WebSocket endpoint. We're using the WebSocket, and first thing we want to do is make sure that it connects properly. So we're making sure that it's accepted. Once it's accepted, the next thing we want to do is get the beginning data, the start data, the beginning of the first data that comes through, and the first data that'll come through will sort of give us information about the call itself. and it's going to be in text format, so we're going to iterate through the text, and we're going to wait for the next data. So to get the next data, we're going to just get the next data. As soon as we get that, what we want to do is actually take that data and work with it. So to do that, we're just going to get that next data again and get that all loaded into call data. Once we get that call data, we can sort of log it for ourselves. So logger.info, we can say call data, just to show us what the call data is. Then we can get the stream SID, which is the ID for the call itself. And we'll do that by doing call data. And no, we're not going to just directly do call SID. We need to get the start because of how it's formatted. And we're going to then get the stream SID. It's not just the call SID, it's called the stream SID. My apologies, this is meant to be... Yep. And then let's log it again. And this time we're going to log that the WebSocket connection was accepted. I like doing capital case. For some reason, it's not necessarily. And then finally, we're just going to actually start our bot, given the WebSocket and the stream SID. Pretty straightforward, so that's kind of how everything gets all started and ready to go. And lastly, because we want to make sure that we could just start this, if we get the main, we want to create a parser, basically so we can get all the sort of information from the whenever we just call this. So we can just call this description, and yeah, we can call it Twilio VoiceBot, and we're going to call it the server, Twilio VoiceBot server. And we do want to get an argument here. We'll use, actually, I don't know if we'll need an argument. We could probably do without this, without adding in any real argument, to be honest. I don't think it's necessary. We're not really going to be using the arguments in any shape or form here. And all we need to do is really run the uvicorn.run and run the app. We can probably set the host to localhost, probably unnecessary, but it's fine. And like I said, because I wanted to work with 8765, that's what I'm setting the port to, and then we're going to reload, because like I mentioned in the previous video, I just like to be able to save and work with that as it works. Pretty straightforward. We have our server, we have the voice bot. Should be mostly ready to go. I think we can test it, and if it works, we're golden. If we have any issues, well, let's figure it out. So let's just make sure to deactivate and make sure that we're connected to the right source file, the correct virtual environment. And I think we should be good to go. Just to double check, we'll pip install -r requirements.txt. All looks good. All right, now let's run it. We want to run the server. Beautiful. So we got the server up and running. Now I'm going to try running a call to this. It will not work because we do not have any. So before I do that, we do have to set the environment variables. So I'm going to pause this, set the environment variables, and I'll be right back. Just so that we have those. Oh. Now I'm going to try running a call to this. It will not work because we do not have any. So before I do that, we do have to set the environment variable. So I'm going to show you the environment variable that we're going to be using. So it's the deepgram API key. That would be really all that you need to put into here. Make sure you put it in. That is not a deepgram API key. You can test it out. It looks more like I actually have no idea which one. Might be OpenAI, might be something else, but you can test it out. It looks just like a random string of numbers and integers. Anyways, yes, the deepgram API key is all you'll need. So now that we're working with Twilio, the other thing you're going to need to do is go to Twilio and set up an account. So I should have an account. Let's hope it's with this account. I'm going to log in and I will be right back. Alright, so we should be on the screen. Once you've logged in, you should have access to a free number with an account. So this is the number I got. And then all you want to do is basically create a webhook that directs directly to your forwarded port. So like we did here, we have the forwarded port here, and since it's the same one, I don't really have to change anything, but that should essentially get that up and running for you. And once you have that ready to go, then we can, try running a call. So really quickly, we cannot reload here because it's not in a separate file. So just gonna remove the reload for now just to make it a little quicker and easier. So all we do now is just run it and we have the server up and running. And now I'm going to try to switch over. Let's see how this works. Scene 2, beautiful. So now I should be able to call the number, which I believe, if I remember correctly, the number is 878-666-9420. As you can see, that's the number. And I'm just going to hit call. I'm going to put it on speaker.
Have a trial account.
So there's a little message that comes.
At any time by upgrading to a full
There's a little message that comes as soon as you call in. So all you have to do to skip that, because I'm on a free account, is just click a button. And we ran into an error. Looks like I missed a T somewhere, so I'm going to go switch back over to here, and you can see that we hit it. There's a T missing from the Fast API WebSocket, and it looks like it's right here, and it looks like we missed a T in the voice bot itself. Pretty straightforward. So it looks like we're going to have to close out this, end the call, and we're going to run the server again. And I'll switch back over to scene 2. And we'll run this call again. Skip the message. We ran into another error. And for now, I'm going to pause the recording and I'll be back. Alright, so it looks like this was the issue. It's the audio buffer that actually has this event handler, not the transport. So let's try running the server again. Like I said, I like the reload, but that would require an extra file, and honestly it would be much quicker to just run through it normally. So again, just gonna try running this call. We'll switch back to this scene so we can just see the call itself.
You have a trial account.
It looks like we ran into another error. Alright, really quick fix. Forgot to pass along the task to actually run. Pretty straightforward. We're gonna have to cancel the server, rerun the server one more time here. We got the server up and running, and let's try switching over to.
You have a trial account.
Looks like we had one more error, but let's see if this will work. Oh, the error is we don't have a llama running. So let's just get that running. So let's make sure that we have a llama running properly. Alright, so we're just going to try creating a system prompt and see if that makes things a little better. So just for, just to make things easy, I've just copied the system prompt from earlier. Probably should throw this whole system prompt a little over, just so that it's all aligned and in the right spot. Just trying to clean things up a little bit. Then the other thing is we want to replace this with the, perfect. And basically all we're doing is, and then because we don't have a participant name here, we're just going to call it, just put my name in there just to make things easy. Of course, we could do a few other changes to make the system prompt better or whatever, but for now, to make things easy and just run, we're gonna try this. Hopefully this will work. We have the server up and running. I'm gonna make the call.
You have a trial account. You can remove this message at any time.
And we ran into another error, maybe. Oh, no, we did not. Testing, 1, 2, 3. No, we are running into an error with Deepgram. There's a possibility I have the wrong API key. Let me just double check that. So let's make sure that that's functional. Gonna run it one more time. Like I said, all I did was the API key change.
You can remove this message at any time by upgrading to a full account. Press any key to
Hello? So I think I forgot to set the model in the Olama. So that seems to be the issue we have here. So let's make sure that we set the model, and we're going to set it to, I believe we had it set to Llama 3.2. So that is what I have downloaded. We can also really check my list of models. And yep, we have Llama 3.2. So we're going to run Llama 3.2. And now we should be able to just run the call again.
a trial account.
Testing. Oh, see, Llama 2 is still not found. So that means we have an error with the server. So the server needs to be restarted. And we will restart the server now that the Llama has been updated here. And we'll run one more call.
You have a trial account. You can remove this
So you've seen this a few times.
by upgrade.
Testing. Did not seem to go through. We'll run that call one more time to see, maybe that was just a weird glitch. Does happen every once in a while.
Trial account.
Hello?
Hello. How can I assist you today?
Can you tell me what you're calling about?
This is the beginning of our conversation. I didn't call or send you a message before this, and I'm an AI assistant, so I don't have the ability to make phone calls. How can I assist you today? Is there something specific?
So as you could see, if I had actually properly, prompted it to be a little bit better, it would have known it's on a call and everything. But we were able to get the call to come out through the phone call. And yeah, thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions or any sort of recommendation, if you guys like the live debugging or not, let me know in the comments, or just leave a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and I'll be able to know that either as well. But yeah, thanks for joining, and hopefully this was helpful.